Hello everybody, today I'm here with Project 240 and we're going to talk about suspension. This car is still pretty new to us. It's on mostly stock suspension. It does have lowering springs, but we know that that's not a setup that we want to keep and that we want to make an upgrade and make a change. And so we're going to talk through in this video, what are my options? What kind of criteria do I need to think about as I spec a suspension for a car like this? And at the end, I'm going to put the ball in your court, ask you to do some research, make some decisions, and come back with what kind of recommendations you think would be best for this project. So let's get started. We're going to take a look at the Miata and some of our other cars, and we'll compare different types of suspension. This is the underside of our 2001 Miata that we utilize for autocross. When this car was donated to us, it already had the suspension on it, and it's a great example of one of our options. So this is really an OE style setup. It's got a lowering spring paired with an adjustable shock, and this combination does a great job. These lowering springs typically have fairly modest spring rates, and so the ride quality of the vehicle is not harmed a whole lot with setups like this typically. The shock adjustment also generally gives us just a single adjustment that either does a rebound or a combination of compression and rebound just in a single adjustment, say 4 clicks total or 8 clicks total. We've got a similar package like this on our Honda Civic that utilizes KYB AGX line shocks, and they have a similar adjustment. The downside to these is that the spring rates are often a little soft in these types of setups. And unless there's a lot of support for the specific platform that you're working with, it can be difficult to find rates that maybe go with the type of racing that you're going to do. The other big downside we see with this is that we don't have ride height adjustability. So beyond a general alignment, we don't have a lot of other chassis setup work that we can do with a suspension setup like that. Our second option that's really common in the motorsport space and just car modification space is to utilize a coilover system like this one on our 1994 Mustang. Coilovers are nice in many ways. There's some things that change, right? So coilover style is the spring coil being wrapped around the shock or the strut housing. Typically, this is offered with an adjustable perch so that you can adjust ride height independently at all 4 corners. There's some great setup that comes with that. They typically also have an adjustable shock. That's not standardized. There's a lot of different options. You can buy coilovers that are height adjustable, but no shock adjustment. And then you can get into pretty high-end coilover setups that have every adjustment you could imagine, and high speed, low speed, compression, rebound. Right, so we can spend a lot of money here. We can get a lot of options. The other things to note that are important if you go to look for coilovers, some of these setups may alter where the spring goes. So a good example on this Mustang, the spring location used to be in that pocket just behind this coilover. You can kind of see it on the chassis. And so that's moving where the stress and the load is. And on some platforms, that can change the dynamic of the geometry within the suspension. So these are things that we got to think about. Ultimately, we need to answer 3 questions to help us with this decision. So the assignment that I've got for you all is to think about these 3 questions, right? So how are we going to use the car? What's our budget? And do we have the ability to set them? Can we work with this specific product? So if I was going to do any of these things on my own car, these are the questions that I would ask, right? And so at this point for Project 240, we know that autocross is going to be the quickest and easiest way for us to get students seat time driving that car. And so we want to set it up with autocross in mind and maybe some ideas of doing drifting in the future as well. And so I'm going to put an assignment in front of you all now and ask that you do some research with these parameters and these questions, right? How we're going to use the car. I'm going to provide some budget guidelines, multiple options. I want to see maybe what's our low end, what's a mid range. And so then we can discuss why we might pick one over the other, and have you do that research online, come up with some videos or some articles to support your decision, along with some links about who's a good supplier in the space that supports this chassis and supports the community around Nissan 240s. If you haven't been in that scene or looked at those, you might be amazed at how many people are out there and supporting that culture. So head on over to Cobra, check out the assignment, and can't wait to see what you all come up with.